Hark, a Vagrant is a 2011 collection of comic strips by Canadian cartoonist Kate Beaton, as you can see her name there. It is a collection of comic strips that skewer history, that make fun of the literature, that are generally witty, have a little bit of Canadian content slipped in there. Opens up with the Brontes doing some boy watching, and how most of them are going, oh man, wow, he's so brooding, he's basically, and Anne's going, that guy's an asshole. It's like, oh my god, so passionate, so masterful. If you like alcoholic dick bags. And yes, poor Anne wasn't into that whole romanticizing of the bad boys, and perhaps thus was the least popular of the Bronte sisters. The Bronte sisters, hopefully, is, yes, get me off this freaking moor. And that gives you a good sense of Kate Beaton's art style. She definitely kind of alters it depending on her subject matter, but it's mostly kind of simple line drawing. This is all a black and white collection. So you get the Brontes, you get them doing, oh, here's a bit of Dickens for you. It's like, the woman complaining that like all your heroines are, meek and mild. And it's like, oh, that's proper ladies. But it's like, oh, so hot. Because apparently that's like, also, that was his fetish. Also a personal fetish of his, which I think maybe sums up Dickens. And that's the great thing with, I think I like with cartoons, you can have someone write a whole volume on like, oh, what was Dickens' sexuality, what was his attitudes towards women, and then you just have like a 3-panel cartoon strip, which yes, wipes away all the nuance and all the subtleties and all the hemming and hawing and, oh, perhaps this, perhaps that, and going, no, he found meek and mild women hot, It's like, I enjoy that. It's a very witty summing up. Maybe it's not true, but it's true. And it's fun that way. You get stuff like her commenting on, just how we view history with the sexy Tudors, and indeed, why is it that, basically if you're gonna talk about Elizabethan times, it's gotta be hot, it's gotta be sexy, you gotta get those bodices up, and then you get fellows like, oh, see, now I have to even read his name here. I think it's Robert Carlyle or Williams. Oh, go tell William Cecil that he may have been a crack statesman, but if he wants to wants us to give a shit about him, he better start hitting the gym, to be buff and sexy. And indeed, she does stick up for the non-sexy parts of history. There's a whole section here of poor Lester B. Pearson, who is a true Canadian hero. He ran a minority government in Canada, which gave us health care, gave us pensions and student loans for the first time. But he's in some ways, he's the true Canadian hero, a very meek and mild guy who got, when he went down to the United States and he started saying stuff about, that maybe the war wasn't a great idea, that the Vietnam War wasn't a great idea. Lester B. Pearson got really pissed off at him and was just like, you little freaking pipsqueak. And like Lester's like, oh, but that's that is, I think, a core thing of probably of how Canadians see ourselves, whether rightly or wrongly, as meek pipsqueaks who get things done sometimes. Whether that's true or not, because like we're not polite. Stuff about just history in general with 15th century romance, peasant romance comics, where it's like, oh, it's the young lovers coming together, and it's like, wow, I've never brushed my teeth, and neither is she. So, you get gross stuff like that. Oh, you get a lovely series that she does is she takes book covers. There's a lot of Edward Gorey, who was a famous cartoonist of his time, and he did a lot of covers. And so you've got Beaton, who takes one of the covers, which are unfortunately in this reproduction are rather hard to see, but she takes the covers and then she sort of basically imagines, what the story was. So we have like what Maisie saw, and you can't even see it in the thing. It's an indistinct little couple, and you've got a little girl here, and then you've got her dramatizing it with like, darling, I want to blank you in the blank, because she's, they've censored it. It's like, Can we use the blank blank? Even better, we'll blank blank. Oh, you dirty blank blank. Ha ha ha. And then there's Maisie sitting there looking, I don't know, semi-disgusted or stuff like that. So yeah, she's got one on that. She's got the Nancy. She's got her Nancy Drew ones as well, where it's like the mysteries of Nancy Drew, which is quite hilarious. And there's a little one here, which is like, either the wallpaper goes awry, which is an Oscar Wilde quote, but it's talking about how Doctor, there's a woman in the wallpaper, which is, I think, is Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper, which it's probably because I'm also reading Fingersmith at the moment, which is Sarah Waters doing a historical kind of Victorian tale with some very good twists and turns in it. I'm catching a lot of the Victorian stuff, but there seems to be a lot of interesting stuff with the Victorian. Indeed, the book ends off with some stuff about oh, those poor, they're so gross, why don't they stop being poor, and the Victorian attitudes towards being poor, which unfortunately you can see attitudes towards the poor today also being like, oh, you're just being lazy, go get a job and stuff like that. And best of all, something I have to recommend for the book is at the very back, it has an index of all the historical and literary characters and subjects that it braces. So if you're like, oh, I want to figure out, oh, there was that one comic they had about David Bowie, because there's a couple of Bowie things in here, or oh, the Batman, because they have sexy Batman in here, which is hilarious. You get buttless chaps Batman, you get Wonder Woman smoking a cigarette, really, really witty, really fun, adult comic. This isn't pratfalls. This is literary jokes, historical jokes. Dostoevsky comes in for a kicking. Fitzgerald, yes, as I said, with Gatsby and all those complete jerks, which high school students are forced to read through. Even though I love the writing and The Great Gatsby. I sympathize for all the poor high school students and probably even younger students who've had to suffer through having the teachers explain the metaphors in The Great Gatsby and all that stuff. It's like, who wants any of that explained? You just want to hear some yokel on YouTube enthuse about it instead. So yes, that's my review of Hark, a Vagrant by Kate Beaton. I will most definitely be picking up other of her collections. She apparently also worked up in, I think it's Fort McMurray, and did a more kind of a serious serious story of her time up there, which would be interesting to hear because I've heard some very dark stories coming out of Fort McMurray, which is basically where you're young and you want to work in the oil sands and make a lot of money. The oil fields, and you want to make a lot of money, you go there. But it also seems to be a place with a lot of darkness, drug addiction, and nastiness happening. So that would be interesting. But yes, as at the moment we're talking about the witty pulling apart of literary and historical conventions and Hark, a Vagrant. So yes, that's my review of that. More videos later.